Jake Morrison pressed his face against the transport window and watched the massive space station grow larger. The Zephyrian Galactic Academy looked like a giant spinning wheel floating in the darkness of space. Lights twinkled across its surface like stars, and ships moved in and out of docking bays like busy insects. "Would you look at that?" whispered Lisa Grant from the seat beside him. Her eyes were wide with wonder. "I can't believe we're really here." Ryan Blake leaned over from across the aisle. "My dad said this place teaches kids from over 200 different worlds. We're going to be the first humans to ever study here." The transport pilot, a tall blue alien with 4 arms, announced their arrival. Jake felt his stomach flip as the artificial gravity adjusted. Everything suddenly felt lighter, like he was walking on the moon. He had read about this in the preparation materials. The Academy used something called Galactic Standard Gravity, which was much weaker than Earth's gravity. As they walked through the docking tube, Jake noticed how easily he moved. Each step felt like he might float away. Lisa giggled as she accidentally jumped too high trying to walk normally. Ryan had to grab a handrail to keep from bouncing into the ceiling. The arrival hall was enormous. Hundreds of alien students moved through the space, and Jake had never seen anything like it. Some looked like giant birds with colorful feathers and delicate wings. Others appeared to be made of living crystal that sparkled in the light. A group of students wore what looked like fish bowls on their heads, filled with blue liquid. Near the information desk, insect-like creatures with multiple arms chattered in clicking sounds. "Welcome, Earth students," said a voice behind them. They turned to see a tall, elegant creature with silver feathers and large golden eyes. "I am Administrator Veldar. We are honored to have the first humans join our academy." Jake noticed how carefully the administrator spoke, like she was being very polite about something difficult. Other alien students nearby had stopped to stare at them. Some pointed and whispered to their friends. "You will find your dormitory assignments here," Veldar continued, handing them data tablets. "Classes begin tomorrow. I must warn you that some students may be curious about your species. Earth is classified as a Class 12 Deathworld in our database." "What does that mean?" Lisa asked. Veldar's feathers rustled slightly. "It means your planet is considered extremely dangerous by galactic standards. Most of our students come from garden worlds with gentle climates and peaceful environments. Your world has intense weather, dangerous animals, and many environmental hazards." Ryan looked confused. "But Earth is just normal to us." "Yes, I imagine it would be," Veldar said quietly. "That is precisely what concerns some of our staff and students. They wonder if beings from such a harsh world can adapt to civilized society." As they walked to their dormitories, Jake noticed how the other students moved. The bird-like aliens, which their information packets called Avirians, seemed to glide more than walk. Their movements were smooth and graceful, but also very careful and slow. The crystal beings, called silicoids, moved in perfectly coordinated groups, their bodies chiming softly as they communicated. The aquatic Neptunians moved slowly in their environmental suits, and the insect-like Shatarians scurried quickly but stayed close together in tight clusters. All of them seemed delicate somehow, like they had never had to worry about getting hurt. In the dormitory, Jake met his roommate, a young Avirian named Keshta who had bright blue feathers and nervous golden eyes. Keshta kept a careful distance and spoke in whispers. "Is it true that your world has storms that can destroy entire cities?" Keshta asked. "Well, yeah, sometimes," Jake said, unpacking his clothes. "Hurricanes and tornadoes can be pretty bad. But most people just prepare for them and stay safe." Keshta's feathers puffed up in what Jake guessed was fear. "And you have creatures that hunt and eat other creatures?" "Sure, that's just nature," Jake said. "Lions and tigers and sharks and stuff. But they mostly leave people alone unless you bother them." The Avirian student looked horrified. "On my world, the most dangerous creature is a small flying animal that might steal fruit from trees. No creature would ever think to harm another." Down the hall, Lisa was having a similar conversation with her roommate, a silicoid named Pure Note who communicated through musical tones. Lisa tried to explain snow and ice, but Purenote couldn't understand how anyone could survive in temperatures that would freeze water. Ryan's roommate was a Neptunian called Deep Current who lived in his environmental suit full of blue liquid. Deep Current was fascinated and terrified by the idea of land-dwelling creatures who breathed gas directly into their bodies. That evening, all the new students gathered in the main hall for orientation. Dean Morthak, an elderly Chitaran with kind eyes and careful movements, welcomed everyone to the academy. Here at the Zephyrian Galactic Academy, we believe that understanding between species comes through shared experience, the dean announced. You will take classes together, live together, and face challenges together. Only by working as one can we build a peaceful galaxy. Jake looked around at the hundreds of alien students. They all seemed so different from humans, but also different from each other. He wondered how they would all get along. Tomorrow you will begin with your physical education classes, Dean Morthak continued. These classes are designed to push each species to their limits in a safe and controlled environment. Through physical challenge, we learn to support and understand each other. An Avirian instructor named Zektor stood up. He had impressive silver and gold feathers and moved with obvious pride. The physical challenges here are designed to test every species fairly. No student should expect special treatment. Zektor's golden eyes found the human students in the crowd. Every species will be challenged equally, regardless of their world of origin. Jake felt a little worried about that statement. He had read that most alien worlds were much safer and easier than Earth. He wondered what these aliens considered a physical challenge. After the ceremony, the three humans walked back to their dormitories under the artificial lights that dimmed to simulate night. The Academy's corridors were wide and safe, with soft surfaces and rounded corners. Everything seemed designed to prevent anyone from getting hurt. This place is like a giant playground, Ryan said quietly. Yeah, but not like the playgrounds we grew up with, Lisa replied. Remember the monkey bars at school? Half the alien kids here probably couldn't even hang from them. Jake nodded. Did you notice how carefully everyone moves? Like they're afraid of breaking something. Or afraid of getting broken, Ryan added. As Jake lay in his bed that night, listening to Keshta's soft breathing, he thought about what tomorrow would bring. He had always been good at sports back on Earth, but he had never thought of himself as especially strong or fast. Here, surrounded by beings from gentle worlds, he was starting to wonder if humans might be very different than he had ever imagined. Outside his window, the stars turned slowly as the Academy rotated through space. Somewhere among those distant lights was Earth, the death world that had shaped every human who had ever lived. Tomorrow, Jake thought, they would find out what that really meant. Jake woke up to the sound of soft chiming. His roommate Keshta was already awake, preening his blue feathers with careful attention. The Avirian moved like he was performing a delicate dance, each motion smooth and controlled. Good morning, Jake said, stretching and accidentally hitting his hand on the ceiling. The dormitory rooms were built for the average galactic citizen, which meant they were too small for humans. Keshta flinched at the loud thud. Are you injured? Should I call medical assistance? Nah, I'm fine, Jake said, rubbing his knuckles. Just bumped it a little. The Avirian stared at him with wide golden eyes. On my world, striking a solid surface with that force would require immediate medical attention. Jake was starting to understand just how different humans were from everyone else here. In the dining hall, the three humans met up for breakfast. The food was strange but edible, designed to meet the nutritional needs of dozens of different species. Jake noticed that most alien students ate very small portions and chewed slowly and carefully. Look at this, Lisa whispered, pointing to a table of silicoid students. The crystal beings were absorbing nutrients through their skin by placing their hands on special mineral plates. They don't even eat food like we do. Ryan watched a group of Chitarians sharing their meal from a communal bowl. Everything here is so different. I feel like we're the aliens. According to them, we are, Jake said. And apparently we're the scary kind of aliens. Their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Instructor Zektor. The Avirian's silver and gold feathers gleamed in the artificial sunlight streaming through the dining hall windows. He moved with obvious pride, and authority. Human students, Zektor announced loudly enough for nearby tables to hear. You will report to Physical Education Complex 7 after your morning meal. Do not be late. As Zektor walked away, Jake noticed the other students at nearby tables whispering and pointing. A young Neptunian in his environmental suit leaned over to his table companions. I heard they have dense bones and powerful muscles because of their world's gravity, the Neptunian said in a watery voice. My cousin told me they can run for hours without stopping, added a Chitaran, her insect-like eyes wide with curiosity. That cannot be true, said an Avirian student. No civilized being could possess such extreme physical capabilities. Lisa rolled her eyes. They're talking about us like we're some kind of monsters. Maybe to them we are, Ryan said quietly. After breakfast, they made their way to Physical Education Complex 7. The facility was impressive, with high ceilings and specialized areas for different types of activities. Jake saw climbing walls, obstacle courses, swimming pools filled with various liquids, and open areas for team sports. About 30 students had gathered for the class, representing 6 different species. Jake counted 8 Avirians, 7 Silicoids, 6 Neptunians, 5 Chitarians, and the 3 humans. Everyone stood in neat groups by species, except for the humans who just stood together casually. Zektor arrived wearing what looked like an instructor's uniform, complete with a whistle and a data pad. His golden eyes surveyed the class with obvious satisfaction. Welcome to Physical Education, Zektor announced. This class exists to promote interspecies understanding through shared physical challenge. Each of you will be pushed to your limits in a safe and controlled environment. He gestured to the various equipment around the complex. These challenges have been carefully designed and tested to provide appropriate difficulty for all galactic species. Safety is our primary concern. Jake looked at the equipment Zektor was pointing to. The climbing wall was about 15 feet high with large, obvious handholds. The obstacle course had low barriers, soft surfaces, and what looked like padding everywhere. The swimming pools were shallow, with gentle currents. This looks like the playground equipment at my elementary school, Ryan whispered. Today we will begin with a simple assessment, Zektor continued. Each student will attempt to complete our basic obstacle course. This will help me understand your individual capabilities and limitations. The instructor led them to a course that wound through the complex. It started with a low wall to climb over, followed by a balance beam, some small hurdles to jump, a rope to climb, and a short sprint to the finish. Signs posted along the course warned students to take frequent breaks and use safety equipment. The average completion time for this course is 12 to 15 minutes, Zektor explained. Do not feel discouraged if you cannot finish. Many students require several attempts before success. He pointed to a table covered with safety gear. Helmets, knee pads, and gloves are available for all participants. Please use them responsibly. The Aviarian students went first. They moved gracefully, but very slowly, taking long breaks between obstacles. The first student, a female with bright red feathers, took nearly 20 minutes to complete the course. She was breathing heavily at the finish and needed to sit down immediately. The Silicoids went next, moving in perfect coordination but at an extremely careful pace. They communicated with musical tones throughout the course, helping each other navigate each obstacle. Their fastest time was 18 minutes. The Neptunians struggled with obstacles designed for land-based species, but their instructor had modified versions of each challenge. They moved slowly in their environmental suits, and their best time was 22 minutes. The Chitarians scurried quickly, but tired easily. They worked together as a team, but their individual times ranged from 14 to 19 minutes. Finally, it was the humans' turn. I will go first, Jake announced, walking to the starting line. Remember to pace yourself, Zektor called out. Use the safety equipment and take breaks as needed. Jake looked at the course again. It really did look like playground equipment. He had been doing more difficult obstacles since he was 5 years old. Ready when you are, he called back. Zektor activated his timer, and Jake started moving. He vaulted over the first wall, without slowing down. The balance beam was wide and stable, so he jogged across it easily. The hurdles were so low, he barely had to lift his feet. The rope climb took him about 10 seconds, and he sprinted to the finish line without breathing hard. Zektor stared at his timer in confusion. 2 minutes and 37 seconds, he announced slowly. The entire class fell silent. Every alien student was staring at Jake with expressions ranging from amazement to fear. "Is that good?" Jake asked, genuinely unsure. "It is impossible," Zektor said flatly. "The timer must be malfunctioning." Lisa stepped up to the starting line. "Can I try?" Zektor reset his timer with obvious skepticism. "Very well, but please be more careful. Safety is our primary concern." Lisa completed the course in 2 minutes and 41 seconds, moving with easy confidence. Ryan followed with a time of 2 minutes and 29 seconds. The alien students watched in stunned silence as the 3 humans stood at the finish line, not even breathing hard. "This is not possible," whispered one of the Averian students. "They moved like the obstacles were not even there," said a silicoid in melodic tones. "Are they not exhausted?" asked a Chitaran. Zektor approached the humans, with his data pad in hand. "You 3 will report for additional testing tomorrow. There must be some explanation for these results." As the class ended and students began to leave, Jake noticed that the aliens were giving them a much wider space than before. Some looked frightened, others fascinated, but all of them were treating the humans very differently. "I think we just became famous," Lisa said quietly. "Or infamous," Ryan added. "Did you see how scared some of them looked?" Jake watched Keshta hurry away with a group of Aviarian students, all of them glancing back nervously at the humans. "I don't think they understand that we were trying to go easy on that course." "Going easy?" Lisa laughed. "I was barely moving faster than a walk." "Same here," Ryan said. "If that's their idea of a physical challenge, we're going to have problems." As they walked back to their dormitories, Jake wondered what tomorrow would bring. The other students were already whispering about the Deathworlders who had broken their obstacle course. He had a feeling that things were about to get very complicated. Word spread quickly through the academy about the humans and their impossible obstacle course times. Jake noticed that alien students now pointed and whispered whenever he walked by. Some seemed fascinated, others looked nervous, and a few appeared genuinely frightened. During lunch, Keshta finally approached their table. The young Averian kept his distance but seemed curious enough to overcome his fear. "Is it true that you completed the obstacle course in under 3 minutes?" Keshta asked in his soft, musical voice. "Yeah, but it wasn't that hard," Jake said, trying to sound casual. "The obstacles were pretty easy." Keshta's golden eyes widened. "Easy?" "That course is designed to challenge the most athletic students in the galaxy. Many seniors cannot complete it at all." Lisa looked surprised. "Really?" But the wall was only like 15 feet high, and the handholds were huge. 15 feet is considered an extreme height for most species, Keshta explained. "On my world, our tallest buildings are only 20 feet high. We are not designed for such dangerous climbing." Ryan paused with his fork halfway to his mouth. "What do you mean dangerous?" "It had safety mats and everything." "Perhaps we should explain how humans live," Jake said gently. He could see that Keshta was genuinely trying to understand. "On Earth, kids climb trees that are 50 or 60 feet tall just for fun. We jump off cliffs into water, ride bicycles at high speeds, and play sports where people crash into each other on purpose." Keshta's feathers puffed up in alarm. "That sounds terrifying. Do many of your young die from these activities?" "Not really," Lisa said. "I mean, sometimes people get hurt, but we learn to be careful. Getting bumps and bruises is just part of growing up." The Averian looked like this concept was completely foreign to him. "On my world, a small cut requires medical attention. The idea of deliberately risking injury for entertainment is difficult to understand." Their conversation was interrupted by Instructor Zektor approaching their table. The Aviarian teacher looked stern and carried a data pad covered with notes. "Human students," Zektor announced, "report to Physical Education Complex 7 immediately. We have additional testing to conduct." As they walked to the complex, Jake noticed they had attracted a following. Dozens of alien students trailed behind at a safe distance, whispering excitedly to each other. By the time they reached the gymnasium, a small crowd had gathered to watch. "Today we will test the Academy's premier training facility," Zektor announced loudly enough for the gathered students to hear. "The adaptive climbing wall." He led them to a section of the complex Jake hadn't noticed before. A massive wall stretched 30 meters high, covered with various handholds, ledges, and obstacles. Computer displays showed different climbing routes of varying difficulty levels. "This wall is the pride of our academy," Zektor explained with obvious satisfaction. "It adapts to each species' capabilities, providing appropriate challenges for everyone." The current academy record is 47 minutes, set by a senior Chitaran student. Jake studied the wall. It looked impressive, but the handholds were large and clearly marked. Safety ropes hung everywhere, and thick mats covered the ground below. Warning signs reminded climbers to rest frequently and never attempt the wall without supervision. "The wall adjusts its difficulty based on the climber's species," Zektor continued. "For humans, it will provide maximum challenge. I expect you will need several attempts before achieving success." He pointed to a rack of safety equipment. "Full safety harnesses are mandatory. Emergency stops are located every 5 meters. Medical staff are standing by." Lisa looked at the elaborate safety setup with confusion. All that for a 30-meter climb? 30 meters is considered extremely dangerous, Zektor said firmly. "Most species require extensive preparation and multiple rest periods. The wall has never been climbed in under 20 minutes. Jake watched an aviarian student attempt the wall. The graceful bird-like alien moved very slowly, clipping into safety ropes every few feet. He took a 10-minute rest break at the halfway point and needed assistance from instructors twice. His final time was 31 minutes, and he collapsed from exhaustion at the top. That's considered excellent performance," Zektor noted proudly. "Can I try?" Lisa asked. Zektor hesitated. "Very well, but you must use all safety equipment. The wall's computer will adjust to maximum difficulty for your species." Lisa strapped on the safety harness, though she looked confused by its complexity. The gathered alien students pressed closer to watch, their various eyes and sensory organs focused intently on her. "Remember," Zektor called out, "pace yourself. Rest frequently. Do not attempt to rush." Lisa approached the wall and studied the computer-generated route. The handholds lit up in sequence, showing her the intended path. She placed her hands on the starting grips and began to climb. What happened next shocked everyone watching. Lisa moved up the wall like gravity didn't exist. She flowed from handhold to handhold without pause, ignoring the suggested rest points. Her movements were smooth and confident, like she was climbing a ladder instead of a challenging rock face. The safety equipment designed to help her actually slowed her down. The harness was bulky, and the safety ropes kept getting in her way. After about 15 meters, she paused and looked down at Zektor. "This harness is really annoying," she called down. "Can I take it off?" "Absolutely not," Zektor shrieked, his feathers standing on end. "That would be extremely dangerous." Lisa shrugged and continued climbing, but now she was moving even faster. She seemed impatient with the wall's difficulty level and started skipping handholds, making her own route to the top. The alien students watched in stunned silence as she reached the summit in under 3 minutes. She rang the completion bell and waved down at the crowd. "That was fun," she called out. "Can I try a harder route?" The wall's computer system began flashing error messages. Warning alarms sounded throughout the complex. Zektor stared at his data pad in disbelief. 2 minutes and 54 seconds, he whispered. "The computer says it's impossible." Lisa rappelled down quickly, landing gracefully on the mats. The handholds were really big and easy to grip, and there were so many of them, I couldn't really find a place to fall. "Place to fall?" Zektor repeated faintly. "Yeah. Normally when you're climbing, you have to worry about falling if you make a mistake," Lisa explained. "But this wall has so many grips, it's basically impossible to fall off." Jake stepped forward. "Can I try now?" Zektor looked like he was having trouble processing what had just happened. The computer must be malfunctioning. It says Lisa completed the most difficult climbing challenge in known space in under 3 minutes. It wasn't that difficult, Lisa said honestly. I've climbed way harder stuff at summer camp. Summer camp? Keshta asked weakly. Yeah, it's where kids go for fun during vacation, Ryan explained. They have rock climbing, rappelling, rope courses, that kind of stuff. Children do this for entertainment? Asked a silicoid student in chiming tones. Sure, Jake said. It's fun. Plus it keeps you in shape. He approached the climbing wall while Zektor was still staring at his malfunctioning computer. Jake decided to try something different. Instead of following the computer's suggested route, he looked for the most direct path to the top. He started climbing without the safety equipment, moving up the wall in a straight line. Where there weren't handholds, he used small ledges and cracks in the wall surface. His fingers found grips that weren't meant to be handholds at all. The alien students gasped as Jake free-climbed the wall, using techniques they had never seen before. He moved like a spider, finding perches where none should exist. When he reached the top, he had set a new record, 2 minutes and 11 seconds. But instead of rappelling down, Jake did something that made several alien students faint. He jumped. From 30 meters up, Jake leaped out from the wall and landed in a perfect roll on the safety mats below. He popped up immediately, completely unharmed. The complex fell completely silent. Even the computer alarms had stopped. Zektor's data pad slipped from his nerveless fingers and clattered to the floor. Why did you do that? Zektor whispered in horror. It was faster than climbing down, Jake said simply. Plus it's kind of fun. Ryan walked over to the wall. My turn. No, Zektor shrieked, his voice cracking. No more. The wall is clearly malfunctioning. This session is over. As they walked away from the climbing complex, Jake could hear the excited chatter of the alien students behind them. They were speaking in dozens of different languages, but the tone was universal, amazement mixed with fear. I think we broke their climbing wall, Lisa said quietly. We broke more than that, Ryan replied, looking back at the crowd of staring aliens. I think we broke their understanding of what's possible. Keshta caught up with them as they left the complex. His blue feathers were still ruffled with excitement and fear. Jake, he said quietly, when you jumped from the wall, were you not afraid? Jake thought about it. Not really. I've jumped from higher places into water, and the mats were really thick. But what if you had missed the mats? Then I would have tried to land properly and probably gotten a little hurt, Jake said. But it wouldn't have been that bad. Keshta stared at him with something approaching awe. You truly are from a death world, he whispered. As they walked back to their dormitories, Jake realized that their little demonstration had changed something fundamental. The other students weren't just curious about humans anymore. They were beginning to understand that humans were something completely different from anything they had ever encountered. Tomorrow, he thought, was going to be very interesting. News of the climbing wall incident spread through the academy like wildfire. By the next morning, Jake couldn't walk through the corridors without being stopped by curious alien students. Some wanted to ask questions, others just wanted to stare, and a few seemed to be studying the humans like they were dangerous animals in a zoo. During breakfast, Administrator Veldar approached their table with a concerned expression on her elegant features. Human students, she said carefully, there have been some discussions among the faculty about your performance in physical education. Are we in trouble? Lisa asked. Not exactly, Veldar replied. But some instructors are concerned that the current curriculum may not be appropriate for your capabilities. There is talk of creating separate classes for humans. Jake felt disappointed. But we want to learn with everyone else. That's the whole point of being here, right? Indeed, Veldar agreed. However, Instructor Zektor has requested permission to conduct one final test. He believes that if you can be challenged appropriately, integration may still be possible. Ryan looked suspicious. What kind of test? The Academy Marathon, Veldar explained. It is our most comprehensive endurance challenge. If you can complete it without overwhelming the other participants, regular classes will continue. After breakfast, the humans found themselves facing the largest gathering of alien students they had seen yet. Word of the test had spread, and it seemed like half the academy had come to watch. Students from all 6 species clustered in small groups, talking excitedly in their various languages. Instructor Zektor stood before the assembled crowd with obvious pride. His silver and gold feathers gleamed in the artificial sunlight, and he carried himself with the confidence of someone about to prove an important point. "Today we will conduct the Academy Marathon," he announced. "This is our ultimate test of physical endurance and mental determination. The course covers the entire recreational complex, including all 15 levels." He gestured to a massive display showing the route. It wound through obstacle courses, climbing sections, swimming areas, and long-running corridors. Rest stations were marked every few kilometers with medical checkpoints scattered throughout. "The current Academy record is 5 hours and 12 minutes, Zektor continued. "Most students require 6 to 8 hours for completion. Many do not finish at all." Jake studied the course map. It looked long, but not particularly difficult. The obstacles were the same easy challenges they had encountered before, just repeated many times over a longer distance. "All participants will carry emergency beacons," Zektor explained. "Medical staff will monitor your progress. Anyone showing signs of exhaustion will be immediately removed from the course for their safety." The alien students began their elaborate preparation rituals. Avirians performed stretching exercises that looked more like dances. Silicoids harmonized together, their crystal bodies ringing with musical coordination. Neptunians checked their environmental suits multiple times and consumed special energy supplements. Shatarians clustered together for what appeared to be a group meditation session. The humans watched this preparation with growing confusion. "Should we be doing something like that?" Lisa asked. "I don't know," Ryan replied. "What do you usually do before a long run?" "Stretch a little, I guess," Jake said. "Make sure my shoes are tied." A young silicoid named Crystal Song approached them, her body chiming with nervous energy. "Are you not going to prepare? The marathon is extremely demanding." "We're ready," Jake said simply. Crystal Song's harmonic tones shifted to what sounded like concern. "But you have no energy supplements, no special equipment, no meditation routine. How will you sustain yourselves for 6 hours of extreme physical effort?" Lisa held up her water bottle. "We brought water." The silicoid stared at them for a long moment, then chimed something that sounded like distress and hurried away to warn her classmates. When the starting signal sounded, the differences became immediately apparent. The alien students began with careful, measured paces. They moved in organized groups, supporting each other and monitoring everyone for signs of fatigue. Their movements were efficient, but extremely cautious. The humans started what they considered a light jog. Within the first kilometer, they had accidentally pulled ahead of the entire field. Jake looked back and saw the alien students far behind them, still moving in their careful, controlled manner. "Should we slow down?" he asked. "This is pretty slow already," Ryan replied. "I feel like I'm barely moving." "Maybe they'll catch up," Lisa suggested. They maintained their easy pace through the first few obstacles. The barriers were low enough to step over, the climbing sections were like playground equipment, and the swimming portions were in shallow pools with gentle currents. To the humans, it felt more like an enjoyable morning walk than a grueling endurance test. By the second hour, they had lapped the first group of struggling alien students. An aviarian who had been leading the non-human participants was breathing heavily and moving very slowly. When he saw the humans approaching from behind, his golden eyes widened in shock. "How are you already completing your second circuit?" he gasped. "Second." Jake looked at his course map. "We're only about a quarter done." The aviarian stared at them in disbelief, then activated his emergency beacon and dropped out of the race. As they continued through the course, the humans began encountering alien students who had started much earlier. Many were resting at the designated stations, consuming energy supplements and receiving medical checkups. Some looked exhausted despite having completed only small portions of the marathon. "Are you feeling okay?" Lisa asked a young Chitaran who was sitting at a rest station with her head in her hands. "I am experiencing severe fatigue," the insect-like student replied. "I may not be able to continue." "How far have you gone?" Ryan asked. "Nearly 3 kilometers. the Chitaran said with obvious pride mixed with exhaustion. It is the furthest I have ever traveled in a single session. The humans exchanged glances. They had already covered more than 15 kilometers and were barely breathing hard. Maybe you should take a longer break, Jake suggested gently. They continued on their way, leaving the exhausted Chitaran staring after them in amazement. By the third hour, the humans were beginning to encounter medical staff who were convinced something was wrong with their monitoring equipment. Your heart rates are barely elevated, a concerned medic told them at a checkpoint. Either our sensors are malfunctioning, or you are not exerting yourselves properly. We feel fine, Lisa assured him. This is a pretty relaxed pace for us. Relaxed? The medic repeated faintly. You are currently moving faster than any student in Academy history, and you describe it as relaxed? Well, yeah, Ryan said. We're not even breathing hard. The medic stared at his instruments, then at the humans, then back at his instruments. He activated his communication device and began speaking rapidly in a language none of the humans recognized. As they entered the final portion of the marathon, Jake realized they were completely alone on the course. They had either lapped everyone multiple times, or most of the other participants had dropped out entirely. This is actually kind of boring, Lisa commented. I was hoping it would be more challenging. At least we're getting a good tour of the academy, Ryan replied. I didn't know there were gardens on level 12. Those are beautiful, Jake agreed. We should come back here when we're not in a race. They crossed the finish line 2 hours and 27 minutes after starting. Instructor Zektor was waiting for them with a crowd of faculty members and a large gathering of alien students who had given up on completing the course themselves. This is impossible, Zektor announced, staring at his timing equipment. No biological entity can complete the Academy Marathon in under 5 hours. The course is designed to push any species to their absolute limits. It was pretty easy, Jake said honestly. The obstacles weren't very hard, and the distance wasn't that long. Not that long. Zektor's voice rose to a screech. You just completed a 40-kilometer course with integrated challenges that would exhaust an athlete from any known species. Lisa looked confused. 40 kilometers? That's only like 25 miles. People run marathons longer than that on Earth all the time. For fun, Ryan added helpfully. The gathered faculty members began talking among themselves in urgent whispers. Several alien students in the crowd looked frightened, while others seemed fascinated by the humans' casual attitude toward their impossible performance. Administrator Veldar approached them with an expression of amazement and concern. Human students, she said carefully, I believe we need to have a very serious discussion about your educational needs. As they walked away from the marathon finish line, Jake could hear the excited chatter of the alien students behind them. The words Deathworlders and impossible seemed to feature prominently in every conversation. I think we might have made things worse, Lisa said quietly. How are we supposed to know their marathon was so easy? Ryan replied. I don't think they consider it easy, Jake said, looking back at the exhausted alien students being helped by medical staff. I think we just broke their understanding of what physical endurance means. Keshta approached them as they left the complex, his blue feathers ruffled with excitement and something that might have been awe. Jake, he said quietly, when humans run for entertainment on your world, how far do you typically travel? Depends on the person, Jake replied. Some people run a few miles, others run 50 or 100 miles if they're really into it. Keshta's golden eyes went wide. 100 miles? For entertainment? Sure, Lisa said. There are these things called ultramarathons where people run incredible distances just to see if they can do it. The young aviarian stood silent for a long moment, processing this information. I begin to understand, he finally said, why your world is classified as a Class 12 death world. You are not just from a dangerous planet. You are the product of that danger. As they walked back to their dormitories, Jake realized that their little marathon had fundamentally changed how the other students saw them. They weren't just strong or fast humans anymore. They were living examples of what evolution could produce when a planet spent millions of years trying to kill everything that lived on it. Tomorrow, he thought things were definitely going to be different. Jake woke up to find his room unusually quiet. Keshta was sitting on his bed, staring at his human roommate with an expression of deep thought. The young Avirian had been increasingly fascinated by the humans since the marathon incident 3 days ago. Jake, Keshta said softly, I have been researching your homeworld in the Academy database. Yeah? What did you find? According to the records, Earth has gravity that is 1.7 times galactic standard, Keshta said, his golden eyes wide. Is this accurate? Jake sat up and stretched. I guess so. We don't really think about it. It's just normal gravity to us. Normal, Keshta repeated faintly. Jake, do you understand what this means? You have been living your entire lives under nearly double the gravitational force that we consider normal. Every step you take, every movement you make, requires almost twice the effort that any of us are accustomed to. Huh, Jake said, considering this. I never really thought about it like that. When you arrived here and found our gravity easy, Keshta continued, it was not because you are exceptionally strong. It was because our gravity is exceptionally weak compared to what your bodies are designed for. At breakfast, the humans found themselves the center of attention once again. However, the atmosphere had changed. Instead of fear or simple curiosity, many of the alien students now looked at them with something approaching respect. Crystal Song, the young silicoid, approached their table with her usual musical chimes. Human Jake, she said in her harmonic voice, is it true that your bodies are adapted to function under extreme gravitational stress? I wouldn't call it extreme, Jake replied. It's just what we're used to. But that would explain so much, Crystal Song continued excitedly. Your dense bone structure, your powerful muscle development, your incredible endurance capabilities. You are not just strong by our standards. You are strong because you had to be. Before Jake could respond, Instructor Zektor's voice echoed through the dining hall. All physical education students report to Complex 7 immediately. We are implementing new protocols today. As they walked to the complex, Jake noticed that even more alien students were following them than usual. Word had spread about the humans' capabilities, and it seemed like everyone wanted to see what would happen next. Zektor was waiting for them with a group of other instructors and several academy administrators. His silver and gold feathers were ruffled with obvious agitation. Today we will be conducting modified training exercises, Zektor announced. The Academy has decided to adjust our approach to accommodate different physiological capabilities. He gestured to a control panel that Jake hadn't noticed before. We will be increasing the artificial gravity in this complex to 120% of galactic standard. This should provide more appropriate challenges for all participants. Jake saw several alien students exchange worried glances. Even a 20% increase in gravity was apparently significant to them. All non-human students will be provided with gravity assistance suits, Zektor continued, pointing to a rack of bulky equipment. These will help compensate for the increased gravitational force. The alien students began strapping on the assistance suits, which looked like powered exoskeletons designed to help them move under the increased gravity. The suits were clearly advanced technology, with servo motors and support systems to help with every movement. The humans stood there in their normal gym clothes. Where are our gravity suits? Lisa asked. Zektor's golden eyes gleamed with something that might have been satisfaction. Humans will participate without assistance. We want to see how you perform under more challenging conditions. Jake felt the gravity shift as the systems activated. The change was noticeable, but not particularly difficult. It felt roughly like carrying a backpack with some books in it. The alien students, even with their assistance suits, were clearly struggling. Their movements became slow and labored. The Aviarians, who normally moved with graceful ease, now shuffled carefully across the floor. The silicoids moved in tighter formations, supporting each other more than usual. Today's exercise will be a team sport, Zektor announced. 3-dimensional movement ball. 2 teams, mixed species, competing for control of a ball in a zero-obstacle environment. He gestured to a large open space with goals at opposite ends. The objective is simple. Get the ball into the opposing team's goal, using any method except carrying it. Jake had played sports like this before, though the three-dimensional aspect was new since players could move up the walls and across the ceiling using magnetic grips built into the complex. The teams were divided with humans split between both sides. Jake found himself teamed with 3 aviarians in gravity suits, 2 silicoids, and a Neptunian. The opposing team had Lisa and Ryan along with representatives from all the other species. As soon as the game began, the differences became obvious. The alien students, even with their assistance suits, moved slowly and carefully. They had to plan each step and movement to avoid losing their balance under the increased gravity. Their normal coordination was disrupted by the extra weight. The humans moved like the gravity change didn't matter at all. Jake intercepted a pass meant for an opposing Chitaran and immediately began moving toward the goal. The Chitaran tried to follow but couldn't match Jake's speed or agility under the increased gravity. Pass to Crystal Song, called one of Jake's silicoid teammates. Jake looked around and saw that Crystal Song was struggling to maintain position near the goal. Her gravity suit was working hard to keep her upright, and she was moving very slowly. Instead of passing immediately, Jake decided to help. He slowed down and positioned himself to block the opposing team while Crystal Song got into a better position. "Take your time," he called to her. "I can hold them off." Ryan from the opposing team tried to steal the ball, but Jake's reflexes under the increased gravity were still far superior to what any of the aliens could manage. He kept control of the ball while giving his teammates time to set up their play. When Crystal Song was finally in position, Jake made a gentle pass that she could easily handle despite her gravity suit's limitations. The silicoid student scored, and her harmonic victory chime rang through the complex. As the game continued, Jake noticed something interesting. The humans weren't dominating the game the way they had dominated the individual challenges. Instead, they were adapting their play to help their alien teammates succeed. Lisa had figured out that she could use her superior mobility to set up plays for her struggling teammates. She would move the ball into position where her alien partners could score, rather than scoring herself. Ryan was doing the same thing, using his advantages to create opportunities for others rather than simply overwhelming the opposition. During a break in the game, Keshta approached Jake. The young aviarian was breathing heavily inside his gravity suit, but his golden eyes were bright with excitement. "Jake," he said, "you are not trying to win by yourself. You are helping us win together." "Well, yeah," Jake replied. "It's a team sport. The point is for the team to win, not for me to win." "But you could easily score every time you touch the ball," Keshta pointed out. "Under this gravity, none of us can match your capabilities." Jake thought about this. That wouldn't be very fun for anyone. What's the point of playing a game if only one person gets to do anything? Keshta's feathers ruffled with what Jake was beginning to recognize as amazement. "You choose to limit yourself so that others can participate meaningfully." "I guess so," Jake said. "Isn't that just normal?" "Not in my experience," Keshta replied quietly. When the game resumed, something had changed. The alien students were no longer intimidated by the humans' capabilities. Instead, they began working with them, using the humans as mobile anchors and support systems for more complex plays. Jake found himself acting as a mobile platform, allowing aviarian students to leap from his shoulders to reach high positions they couldn't manage on their own under the increased gravity. Lisa became a defensive specialist, using her mobility to cover multiple positions while her alien teammates focused on areas where they could be most effective. Ryan turned into a playmaker, setting up elaborate team plays that used each species' strengths while compensating for their limitations under the heavier gravity. By the end of the session, both teams were working together in ways that none of them had imagined possible. The humans had become force multipliers, making their alien teammates more effective rather than simply replacing them. After the game, instructor Zektor gathered all the students together. His expression was thoughtful rather than frustrated. "Today's exercise has demonstrated something unexpected," he announced. "Under more challenging conditions, we did not see the humans simply dominate the activity. Instead, we observed unprecedented levels of interspecies cooperation." He looked directly at Jake, Lisa, and Ryan. "You three chose to use your advantages to enhance team performance rather than individual achievement. This is noteworthy." Administrator Veldar, who had been observing from the sidelines, approached the group. I believe, she said carefully, that we may have been approaching this situation incorrectly. Rather than trying to limit human capabilities, perhaps we should be learning how to integrate them more effectively. As they left the complex, Jake noticed that the alien students were walking with them rather than following at a distance. The increased gravity had somehow broken down barriers that the previous exercises had only reinforced. That was actually fun, Crystal Song chimed to Lisa. When you helped me reach the upper goal position, I felt like I could fly even in this heavy gravity. You moved really well once you got up there, Lisa replied. Your coordination is amazing. I could never move that precisely. Keshta fell into step beside Jake as they walked back to their dormitories. Jake, he said quietly, I think I understand now why humans are not just survivors from a death world. You are builders of communities that can survive anything. Jake looked at his aviarian friend with surprise. What do you mean? On your world, survival required not just individual strength, but cooperation under impossible conditions, Keshta explained. You learn to help others not despite your advantages, but because of them. That is a very different kind of evolution. As they walked through the academy corridors, tomorrow, he thought, was going to be very different indeed. It's when part of the planet gets so cold that all the water freezes, Jake explained. The temperature can drop to where it would kill you in minutes if you didn't have proper clothing and shelter. Kill you? Quick Click's compound eyes widened. The weather can be lethal? Well, yeah, if you're not prepared for it. But humans have lived in those climates for thousands of years. We just wear warm clothes and heat our buildings. Ryan arrived with his own group of alien friends, and the impromptu Earth discussion continued to grow. Tell them about animals, suggested Purenote, a silicoid who had become particularly interested in human culture. What kind of animals? Jake asked. Dangerous ones, Crystal Song chimed. The database mentions predatory species that hunt other animals for food. Oh, like lions and tigers and bears, Jake said casually. The alien students exchanged alarmed glances. These creatures actively hunt and kill other animals? Asked Softwing, a young aviarian. Sure, that's how they eat. It's just the natural food chain. And humans share the planet with these creatures? Deep Current asked in disbelief. Yeah, though most of them stay away from human settlements. Sometimes people go on safaris to see them in the wild. Safaris? Keshta asked weakly. It's like a vacation where you go look at dangerous animals, Lisa explained helpfully. People think it's fun. The gathered aliens fell silent for a long moment. You deliberately seek out deadly predators for entertainment. Quick Click finally asked. They're not usually deadly if you're careful, Ryan said. Plus, they're beautiful animals. It's amazing to see them in their natural habitat. Natural habitat, Purenote repeated in chiming tones. You mean the places where they hunt and kill? Well, yeah, but they mostly hunt other animals, not humans. Humans aren't really part of their normal diet. Mostly. Softwing's voice was barely a whisper. Jake realized he might be making Earth sound worse than it actually was. Look, it's really not that dangerous if you use common sense. Millions of people live perfectly normal, safe lives on Earth. But there are still risks, Keshta said. Daily risks that you accept as normal. I guess so, Jake admitted. But that's just life. Every planet probably has some dangers. Crystal Song's harmonic tones shifted to what sounded like gentle disagreement. Jake, my homeworld has no predatory animals. Our weather is stable and mild year-round. The most dangerous event in our recorded history was a small earthquake that knocked over some buildings, and no one was hurt. Seriously? Jake looked around at the other alien students. What about your worlds? My world has gentle breezes and warm rain, Softwing said. The temperature varies by perhaps 10 degrees throughout the year. Mine is entirely aquatic, Deep Current added. The environment is completely controlled and stable. The concept of weather doesn't really apply. Our world is peaceful, Quick Click explained. All animals are herbivorous. Conflict is unknown. Jake felt a growing sense of understanding. So, when you guys came here, this was like an adventure? Something exciting and maybe a little dangerous? The academy is considered extremely challenging, Keshta confirmed. Many students from my world consider it too risky to attend. But it's just a school, Lisa said, confused. A school that requires travel through space, living in an artificial environment, and participating in physical challenges, Crystal Song pointed out. For most of us, this represents the most dangerous situation we have ever experienced. Jake looked around at his alien friends with new understanding. And then we showed up. Yes, Keshta said quietly. Then you showed up. Beings from a world so dangerous that our most extreme challenges are trivial exercise to you. Beings who find lightning storms beautiful and consider predatory animals interesting. We started to understand that day when you completed the obstacle course, Pure Note chimed. You moved like gravity and physical barriers didn't exist. Then the climbing wall, Softwing added. You climbed like you were designed for it. The marathon, Deep Current bubbled. You ran for hours without rest, like endurance was unlimited. And yesterday, with the increased gravity, Quick Click continued, you helped us achieve things we never thought possible. Jake felt a strange mix of pride and embarrassment. We're really not that special. Any human could do the same things. That, Keshta said softly, is exactly what makes you special. To you, surviving impossible conditions is normal. Overcoming deadly challenges is routine. And when you have every advantage, you choose to help others rather than dominate them. Because that's how you survived your death world, Crystal Song added with musical insight. Not just individually, but as a species. You learned to work together against a planet that was trying to kill you. The library had grown quiet around them. Students from other species had stopped their own studies to listen to the discussion about Earth and humans. Is it true, asked a voice from the crowd, that human children play games that would be considered extreme sports on other worlds? Like what? Ryan asked. The database mentioned something called tag, where children chase each other at high speed. Lisa laughed. Tag is barely even exercise. Kids play that when they're like 5 years old. And hide and seek, where children deliberately lose track of their guardians? That's just a game, Jake said. The point is to have fun. And organized sports where children collide with each other intentionally? You mean like football or rugby? Ryan said. Yeah, those are popular. They teach teamwork and strategy. The alien students exchanged looks that mixed amazement with something approaching awe. Human children engage in activities that would hospitalize adults from our worlds, Softwing said quietly. And you call it play. Jake looked around at his alien friends and realized something important. They weren't afraid of humans anymore. They were beginning to understand that humans represented something completely different from anything in their experience, a species that had been forged by constant challenge into something that was both incredibly capable and fundamentally cooperative. Jake, Keshta said thoughtfully, I believe we owe you and your species an apology. For what? When you first arrived, we saw you as dangerous anomalies. Deathworlders who might disrupt our peaceful academy. We were afraid you would be violent or antisocial. But instead, Crystal Song chimed, you have shown us that strength can be gentle, that capability can be generous, and that survivors can be builders. You have made all of us stronger, Deep Current added. Not by competing with us, but by helping us discover capabilities we never knew we had. As the group slowly dispersed back to their studies, Jake felt a profound shift in how the academy viewed humans. They were no longer outsiders to be watched carefully or dangerous unknowns to be contained. They were teachers showing everyone what was possible when you refused to accept limitations. And tomorrow, Jake realized, everything was going to change again. Jake was studying in the academy library when Crystal Song approached his table. The young silicoid moved with her usual musical chimes, but her harmonic tones seemed more curious than usual. Human Jake, she said, settling her crystalline form into a chair designed for her species. May I ask you something personal? Sure, Jake replied, looking up from his xenobiology textbook. Your homeworld, Crystal Song began, her voice creating soft musical harmonies, The database classifies it as a class, 12 Deathworld. But the descriptions are very technical. What is it actually like to live there? Jake paused, realizing he had never really tried to explain Earth to anyone before. I guess it's just normal to us. What specifically do you want to know? Everything, Crystal Song chimed excitedly. Start with the basics. What is the environment like? Well, Jake said, thinking about how to begin. We have weather that changes all the time. Sometimes it's hot, sometimes it's cold. We get storms with lightning and thunder and heavy rain. Crystal Song's harmonic tones shifted to what sounded like concern. Lightning? As in electrical discharges from the atmosphere? Yeah, pretty common during storms. It's actually kind of beautiful, though you have to be careful not to get struck by it. Struck by it? Crystal Song's voice rose to a higher pitch. You mean it can hit people? Sometimes, but it's pretty rare. Most people just go inside when there's lightning. At that moment, Keshta and Deep Current approached the table. The Aviarian and Neptunian had become regular study partners with the humans over the past week. Are you discussing Earth? Keshta asked, his golden eyes bright with interest. I have been reading about ice storms in the database. Is it true that frozen water can fall from the sky hard enough to damage structures? You mean hail? Jake said. Yeah, that happens sometimes. I've seen hailstones as big as golf balls. Deep Current's aquatic voice bubbled through his environmental suit speakers. Golf balls. They're about this big, Jake said, making a circle with his thumb and finger. Hail that size can dent cars and break windows. The three alien students stared at him in shock. And this occurs regularly? Deep Current asked. Not regularly, but a few times a year in some places. It's just weather. Just weather, Keshta repeated faintly. More students began gathering around their table as word spread that Jake was describing Earth. Soon they had an audience of nearly 20 aliens, all listening with fascination and growing alarm. Tell them about winter, Lisa said, joining the group with her own collection of alien study partners. What's winter? Asked a young Chitaran named Quick Click. Instructor Zektor stood before his assembled physical education class with an expression Jake had never seen before. The Aviarian's usual pride and stern authority had been replaced by something that looked almost like curiosity mixed with respect. Students, Zektor announced, today we will be implementing new protocols based on recent observations and educational developments. Jake exchanged glances with Lisa and Ryan. Ever since their conversation in the library had spread throughout the academy, things had been different. Alien students approached them with questions instead of fear. Faculty members observed their classes with scientific interest rather than concern. The traditional approach to physical education at this academy has been based on individual achievement and species-specific challenges, Zektor continued. However, recent events have demonstrated that this approach may be limited. Keshta raised a delicate wing. Instructor, are you referring to the integration exercises with the humans? Indeed, Zektor replied. When we increased gravity to challenge the humans, we observed something unprecedented. Rather than dominating the activities, they adapted their superior capabilities to enhance team performance. This suggests a new educational model. Jake felt a flutter of nervousness. What kind of new model? Mixed species cooperative challenges, Zektor explained, gesturing to equipment that had been set up around the complex. Instead of competing against each other, teams will work together to overcome obstacles that no single species could handle alone. The equipment looked more complex than anything they had used before. There were tall climbing walls with obstacles that required multiple people to overcome, puzzle boxes that needed different types of manipulation, and coordination challenges that seemed designed for various physical capabilities. The first challenge, Zektor announced, pointing to a large obstacle course, requires teams to transport a fragile object through a series of barriers. The object cannot be carried by any individual for more than 10 seconds, and it will break if subjected to excessive force or vibration. Jake studied the course. It had high walls that would require climbing, narrow passages that needed careful navigation, and delicate balance elements that would require precise coordination. Teams will be mixed species, Zektor continued. Each team must include at least one representative from 3 different worlds. As the teams formed, Jake found himself grouped with Keshta, Crystal Song, and a young Chitaran named Swiftstep. Lisa was teamed with Pure Note, Deep Current, and Softwing. Ryan's team included Quick Click and 2 other alien students Jake didn't know well. The object you must transport, Zektor said, producing a delicate crystal sphere that seemed to glow with internal light, is a harmonic resonator from the silicoid homeworld. It is extremely fragile and will shatter if dropped, shaken violently, or subjected to rapid temperature changes. Crystal Song chimed with obvious concern. Those are priceless cultural artifacts. Are we really going to risk breaking one? It is a replica, Zektor assured her. But it will react exactly like the real thing. Jake looked at the obstacle course again, now understanding the challenge differently. This wasn't about individual physical performance. It was about figuring out how to use each team member's capabilities to solve a complex problem. 10 minutes to plan your approach, Zektor announced. Then we begin. Jake's team huddled together to discuss strategy. The first obstacle is a 15-foot wall, Keshta observed. I can fly to the top easily, but I cannot carry the resonator. It's too heavy for my flight capability. I can climb the wall quickly, Jake said, but I can't fly down the other side with the resonator. I can create a harmonic stabilization field around the resonator, Crystal Song chimed. It will protect it from minor vibrations, but I need to maintain physical contact to sustain the field. Swiftstep clicked thoughtfully. My species can create sticky secretions that provide excellent grip. I could help secure handholds for climbing. Jake felt excitement building as he began to see how their different abilities could work together. What if Keshta flies to the top first and secures a rope? Jake suggested. I can climb up carrying Crystal Song while she protects the resonator. Swiftstep can help me get a better grip on the wall. But how do we get down the other side? Keshta asked. You could fly down with the rope and anchor it, Jake said. I can rappel down with Crystal Song and the resonator. They spent the remaining planning time working out details, and Jake was amazed at how naturally the team coordination developed. Each species brought something unique to the solution. When the exercise began, their plan worked better than Jake had expected. Swiftstep's secretions gave him perfect grip on the climbing wall. Keshta's flight ability allowed for rope positioning that would have been impossible otherwise. Crystal Song's harmonic field kept the resonator stable throughout the climbing process. But the real breakthrough came when they reached the narrow passage section of the course. The passage was too small for Jake to fit through while carrying Crystal Song and the resonator. But it was perfectly sized for Keshta's flight capability, while being too complex for him to navigate alone. I have an idea, Jake said. What if I navigate from outside the passage and call out directions while Keshta flies through with the resonator? But the passages are like a maze, Keshta pointed out. I cannot see the full route from inside. I can, Jake said, studying the transparent tunnel system. And Crystal Song can provide harmonic guidance if you start to go off course. What followed was unlike anything they had done in physical education before. Jake traced the optimal path from outside the maze while Keshta flew through the passages. Crystal Song provided audio cues through harmonic tones that helped Keshta maintain proper speed and direction. Swiftstep used her natural climbing ability to position herself at key junctions, ready to assist if needed. They completed the course in record time, but more importantly, they completed it with every team member contributing essential skills. The other teams had developed their own innovative solutions. Lisa's team used Pure Note's crystalline structure as a stable platform, while Deep Current's aquatic maneuvering skills allowed for movements through obstacles designed for liquid environments. Ryan's team had Quick Click coordinate multiple simultaneous actions, while the other team members handled different aspects of the challenge. When all teams had finished, Zektor gathered them together with an expression of obvious satisfaction. Today you have demonstrated something that has never been achieved in this academy's history, he announced. You have not just succeeded at physical challenges. You have transcended them by recognizing that your differences are strengths, not limitations. Jake felt a warm glow of pride, not just for his own team, but for all the teams. Every group had found ways to combine their unique capabilities into something greater than the sum of their parts. The humans, Zector continued, looking directly at Jake, Lisa, and Ryan, have shown us that superior individual capability is most valuable when it elevates others. They could have completed these challenges alone, but instead they chose to make their teammates indispensable. Crystal Song chimed with musical happiness. Jake's strength allowed me to reach places I never could have accessed, but my harmonic abilities gave the team capabilities Jake could never have achieved alone. Exactly, Zector said. And this principle extends beyond physical challenges. In the real galaxy, the most successful endeavors combine different species' capabilities rather than relying on any single advantage. Administrator Veldar appeared at the edge of the complex, having watched the entire exercise. She approached the group with an expression of deep thoughtfulness. Instructor Zector, she said, I believe we need to discuss expanding this approach to other areas of the curriculum. Other areas?
Keshta asked.
Academic challenges, problem-solving exercises, even social activities, Veldar explained. If physical education can be transformed through cooperative diversity, perhaps the same principles apply to intellectual and cultural exchange. Jake realized what she was suggesting. You mean make everything about working together instead of competing? Not instead of competing, Veldar corrected, but competing as mixed teams against challenges, rather than competing against each other. Using competition to build cooperation rather than division. Over the following days, the Academy began implementing the new cooperative model in multiple areas. Science classes formed mixed-species research teams. Literature courses analyzed stories from different worlds through multiple cultural perspectives. Even meal times became opportunities for species to share food traditions and learn from each other. Jake found himself appointed as the first student assistant coach, helping design new physical challenges that would require diverse capabilities. Lisa became a coordinator for interspecies social activities. Ryan started a cross-training program where different species taught each other their natural movement techniques. The changes weren't just academic. The entire social atmosphere of the Academy had shifted. Species barriers that had existed for decades were dissolving as students discovered what they could accomplish together. Jake, Keshta said one evening as they studied together in their room, do you realize what you humans have accomplished here? We just tried to be helpful, Jake replied. You have revolutionized how an entire institution thinks about diversity and capability, Keshta said. Before you arrived, we saw differences as obstacles to overcome. You have shown us that differences are tools to be utilized.
Jake thought about this.
I guess that makes sense. On Earth, different people are good at different things. The best teams use everyone's strengths. Yes, but you learned this because your world required it, Keshta pointed out. Survival on a death world demands both individual excellence and group cooperation. Most of us come from worlds where survival is easy, so we never learn to truly depend on each other. As Jake lay in bed that night, he reflected on how much had changed since their arrival. They had come to the Academy as exchange students, hoping to learn about other species and cultures. Instead, they had ended up teaching an entire galaxy about the power of cooperative diversity. Tomorrow, he knew, would bring new challenges and new opportunities to build bridges between species. And for the first time since arriving at the Academy, Jake felt like they truly belonged here.